Hey guys, so in the previous video I covered a little bit about renting versus buying cars in Portugal and my experience of it in any case so far. So I'm not going to really go into the reasons why I decided to buy as opposed to just keep renting. But I will say that if you live in a city like Cascais or any city with amenities that are within walking distance, you really don't need transport, as public transport is really good in most cities. And of course you can walk if you need to get things. But it's when you start living outside of those cities, or if you need to drive places like I do now from Cascais to Castelo Branco to search for a farm, that's when you really start needing your own transport, because renting is really expensive. Living in a city like Cascais also makes it really easy to get everywhere, because they have a system called Viva Cascais, which means living in Cascais or Cascais living, whereby you can have a card, and if you can prove that you live or are a resident in Cascais, you can use the public bus system for free anywhere in the Cascais district, which is really cool. I personally haven't done this yet because I haven't figured out exactly what I need to do that, but I've seen the buses around and they look really cool. So for those of you who guessed that I was going to buy the Dacia Duster, you guessed right. I ended up buying the 2017 Dacia Duster from a dealership, second-hand dealership, and so far I'm super happy with it. It had low mileage on the clock, and I really love the fact that they gave me an 18-month warranty, and they also changed two of the tires for me. Two of the tires were looking great, so they did that as part of the price, and the price was really good. So let's talk a little bit about the buying process, or at least my experience of the buying process. Now, as with most places around the world, there's two ways that you can buy a vehicle in Portugal. You can buy through a dealership or you can buy privately. Now, I opted to buy through a dealership mostly because it will give you, they have to give you a minimum of 12-month guarantee on the vehicle, electronics and technical parts, all of it. Whereas if you buy privately, it doesn't come with a guarantee. Also, you're not 100% sure of what you get, but there's also a way that you can check the vehicle. Of course, with all of these vehicles, whether you buy privately or whether you buy through a dealership, you are more than welcome to bring your own mechanic to test the car and to see if there's anything wrong with it or whatever before you make that purchase. I just felt a little happier going through a dealership, thinking maybe that if you go through a dealership, they probably won't try and crook you, but I don't know. Buying a car privately is a lot cheaper though than buying a car through a dealership. Obviously dealerships have to add some markup, so that's quite understandable. Now there's many places where you can find these vehicles. I personally signed up to a couple of websites and got alerts on the vehicles and the models and the makes and the mileage and the prices that I was looking for. I'll link them all down below to get you a head start. Of course there's all the usual places like Facebook Marketplace, OLX as well here, but I will link them all down below. And the other way that a lot of people have, that I've seen a few people actually find cars, is to just go directly to the dealerships. But in order to do that, you probably need a car to get there. So I opted to do everything digitally and then selected a couple of vehicles that I wanted to see in person, test drove, and then made my decision based on that. Let's quickly talk about the purchasing process and the documents that are required to complete the transaction. It is not uncommon for dealerships to ask you to pay a small deposit. This is in order for you to reserve the vehicle and that no one else will sell it whilst you're completing the purchasing transaction. They will also ask you for some kind of form of identification. This can be your passport. You do not need to be a resident of Portugal in order to buy a vehicle here. They will ask you for your address. You don't necessarily need to provide a proof of address, but it's always nicer to have something and not need it than need it and not have it. They will also then ask you for your NIF, which is your Portuguese tax number. They will then take all of these documents and create the contract. Make sure that they've included all of your conditions of sale within this contract, because this will be the final agreement of sale. When you collect the vehicle, they will also ask you to have a proof of insurance, vehicle insurance. It is illegal to drive in Portugal without car insurance, and they will not let you drive the car off the dealership floor without having proof of sufficient car insurance. So on the day of collection, I took my laptop with me in order to do the transfer of the balance of payment required for the vehicle. The dealership also won't give you the car if that money hasn't cleared in their account. So be sure to make sure that you have set your transaction limit high enough in order to do that payment in one go. The other options, if this doesn't work for you, is that you can go and do the payment at an ATM, which allows for bigger number transactions, or to do this transaction in bank. The downside is if you can't do this, you might just walk out disappointed and need to come back another day to complete this transaction. After the money clears in the account, they will then hand you a bunch of documents. In my case, they handed me the registration papers, which is basically the ownership documents of the vehicle. They handed me the vehicle inspection paper. Now, this is an interesting one. In Portugal, if a vehicle is older than 4 years old, for the first 5 years thereafter, it needs to go for a roadworthy inspection every 2 years. And then after those 5 years, it needs to go for that roadworthy inspection annually. You need to have these documents at hand whenever you're driving the vehicle. They also gave me a piece of paper to prove that I have bought the vehicle from them. This is to prove that I do own the vehicle, as I'm still in the process of transferring the vehicle into my details. So if the police pull me over, at least I can hand them these papers to show them that the vehicle does belong to me. Now, there are 5 documents one needs when driving in Portugal. The first, of course, being your driver's license. Now, you can drive with your home country driver's license, but the duration that you can drive on that license depends on the reason you're here. The second document is your car insurance. As I mentioned, that needs to be printed out and present in the car at all times. Third document is your ownership documentation. 4, the inspection certification, and 5, your identification document. Now, the interesting thing about the ownership documents is that you don't need to prove the ownership. You don't need to prove that the person's name that is on the ownership documentation is you. The authorities just want to see that you have all the papers with you. The insurance process itself was relatively easy and simple to do. You can either use a broker, which costs you nothing, or you can, if you don't want to use a broker, you can just go to any of the websites. You can just Google insurance in Portugal, car insurance, whatever insurance you need, and a couple of websites will come up. Most of them allow you to do online simulations, which will give you an idea of costs and stuff like that. And signing up is as simple as a few clicks, a few forms, and there you are. I ended up using my broker just because it was really easy to do, and the whole process took really quickly. Within 24 hours the process was done, and I could walk into the car dealership with my insurance document in hand, which was great, which was valid from the day that I picked up the car. Obviously it needs to be valid for the moment you drive that vehicle out the dealership. So what documents did I need to get the insurance? The documents that you require to get insurance is really not a lot, but you do need your car registration number, which is basically the license plate number. I thought that you may need the VIN number as well, but you don't actually need any of that, just the registration plates. The make and the model, of course, of the vehicle, and also they ask you for the color of the car. You need a copy of your driver's license as well, and that you can send to the broker, or you can just put otherwise if you're doing the online simulations, all you need to put in is the year that you were first issued your driver's license as it appears on your driver's license card. And then the last thing that they will require is the start date of the cover. Now, of course, if you're doing this online, there's still a couple of checks and balances that has to happen. It's not a fully automated process. And I was scared that it wasn't going to happen for the time that I needed, which is why I went to my broker, and literally it took 24 hours. So he could do it more immediate. He could make sure that everything happened as I required it, from the date that I required it. Now, as I mentioned, there's so many different platforms that you can get insurance from and different providers. And all the levels are more or less the same. But I'll break it down very, very simply into 3 levels of insurance. Now, as I mentioned, car insurance is mandatory in Portugal. Level 1, which is your absolute basic car insurance, is the minimum mandatory insurance that's required. Usually people take this if they don't want to pay a lot for insurance. And of course, if you've got a newer vehicle, if you've got a newer car and you don't really need to pay in addition for things like breakdowns or anything that would be required for an older vehicle. The second level is a more comprehensive insurance and is especially great for older vehicles or vehicles that are outside of their warranty. And then the third tier is literally fully comprehensive cover, which covers your vehicle and covers the driver as well, inclusive of theft of the vehicle and basically premium medical cover for the driver of the vehicle. And there's third-party liability included in that. But check your own levels, read through the T's and C's of the plans that you're looking at, and then choose the cover that works for you. To give you an idea of pricing, the insurance costs are charged annually. The basic mandatory insurance with the insurance company that I've used is around 230 euros per year. The second level, which was the fully comprehensive cover, is 350 euros per year, and the very tippy top level, the premium insurance cover, is about 520, 530 around there euros per year. So that should give you a better idea as to what insurance costs and the level of cover that it provides in Portugal. I have one final tip on the car buying process. And that is, if you're used to something like a AAA or an automobile association, Portugal does have an automobile association, and it's called ACP. You can get insurance via ACP and other really nice benefits like breakdown assistance, etc., etc. But another really nice service that they offer, and you don't have to be a member of the club to get this service, you can actually do a one-off fee, is they provide a used car inspection. So before you buy a car, and if you don't know any mechanics in your area, you can just go to your local ACP or just go to the website, find a service provider in the vicinity that you're looking to buy the car, and ask them to go and inspect the vehicle for you. They will give you a full report on the vehicle to help you make a decision whether it's a good buy. So that's always something really good to do as well. This has been a long one, I know, but I hope that I have made the car buying process a little bit simpler. And I'm very excited to announce that we're headed back to our normal content very soon, as I'm headed back to Castelo Branco to continue my search for my dream farm. Stay tuned for that. See you next time.